The man took part in the hunter qualification exam. What followed shocked even the world's top S-rank elites. All because he defeated a rising star of the hunter world using nothing but basic hand-to-hand combat. The scene left every examiner speechless. Even the strongest member of an S-rank guild couldn't suppress the urge to personally test the limits of his strength. What they didn't know was that Hukun had spent 80 long years fighting in another world, an undefeated spear god. He had once slain the demon king of that realm with his own hands. After completing his mission, exhaustion finally caught up with him, and so Hukun made a request to the goddess. He asked that all his memories and experiences be preserved and that he be sent back to Earth. The goddess agreed. However, the version of him that once existed on Earth was already dead, so she placed his soul into a new vessel. In the next instant, a beam of light crashed down onto Hukun. That vessel happened to be a body on the verge of death. Even so, the goddess believed he would live an entirely new life through it. When Hukun opened his eyes again, he was back on Earth. That cursed other world had put him through endless suffering. Now returned, his new body belonged to nothing more than a teenage boy. He turned on the kitchen faucet and stared at the clean, uncontaminated water flowing out. With a simple press, fire appeared. This was real magic. The mages of that other world could all go to hell. More importantly, this world still had his favorite food, fried chicken cutlets. The genuine texture brought tears to his eyes. This was what real food was supposed to taste like. In 80 years of non-stop combat, he had never once eaten a proper meal. At last, he could live like an ordinary person again. What Hukun didn't notice was the faint red glow illuminating the world outside his window. He stepped into the bathroom and took a long, comfortable shower. Although he still felt completely out of sync with this world, he believed a better life was finally within reach. Then, without warning, a grotesque face appeared outside his window. He nearly jumped out of his skin. How could something like that exist on Earth? Moments later, a broadcast echoed through the room, issuing an emergency announcement. A corrosion rift had appeared in the apartment complex. All residents were ordered to evacuate to the underground shelter immediately. Hukun had no idea what a corrosion rift was, nor what was truly happening. The next sight left him utterly shaken. Several humanoid monsters clung densely to the glass of his window, their sharp claws scraping against it, ready to pierce straight through. Just as they were about to break in, Hukun spun around and ran. It was clear now. This Earth was no longer the one he remembered. He needed answers, and fast. These humanoid creatures looked eerily similar to the monsters he had fought in the other world. Hukun quickly moved to the edge of the window, slipping out of their line of sight. Once they were gone, he climbed out through the window without hesitation. The safest option was to follow the broadcast and head for the shelter. That was when he noticed a child standing ahead. He was about to take the boy with him when he realized the child was actually planning to head back toward the monsters. Though the boy's face was young, his eyes were steady and resolute. He even spoke about defeating the monsters and casually asked Hukun if he wanted to join him. Hukun was baffled. Were kids these days really this fearless? From the child, Hukun learned that Earth had been like this for 13 years. Corrosion rifts were gateways through which monsters emerged, and no one knew how they formed or when and where they would appear. The realization left Hukun deeply frustrated. After all the hardship it took to return to Earth, it had turned into a living hell anyway. He casually asked who the strongest hunter on Earth was. Without hesitation, the child answered, Lee San. Lee San belonged to the Ganabi Guild, one of the top 10 guilds on Earth. She wielded a massive greatsword and was currently handling a corrosion rift in Shorewin. Even knowing such powerful hunters existed, the idea of ordinary people fighting monsters still felt unreal to Hukun. Suddenly, Hukun covered the child's mouth and signaled for silence. Monsters were approaching. A closer look revealed 5 creatures directly ahead, but Hukun knew better. There were 5 in sight, and 1 more hiding nearby. Fortunately, this new body also possessed strength far beyond that of a normal human, enough to deal with them. Still, he wasn't confident he could protect the child in the middle of a fight. Leaving him behind, however, was not an option. As Hukun weighed his choices, a familiar sensation washed over him. The air carried traces of a faint blue energy. It was mana. At that moment, Hukun was certain. This world was exactly the same as the one he had once known. In the next instant, one of the monsters burst into flames, ignited by his own hand. Although the mana he had accumulated over 80 years was long gone, as long as mana existed in the air, he could draw upon it again. That meant the power engraved deep into his soul still answered his call. Paradox Flame. The firepower was slightly lacking, but against a handful of monsters like these, it was more than sufficient. The child stared at him in awe. "I never thought you'd have such a unique ability." As if emboldened by those words, the boy prepared to rush forward and finish off the remaining monsters himself. Hukun felt speechless. The monsters hadn't even fully locked onto their target yet. Why would anyone charge in now? Just as he expected, the boy instantly became the monster's focus. Terror washed over his face. Hukun grabbed the boy's arm before he could take another step. He gestured toward a stick lying nearby, signaling for him to hand it over. He needed a weapon. 3 monsters lunged at once. The moment the stick touched his hand, Hukun's gaze changed. A sharp whistle split the air as he swung. In the blink of an eye, all 3 monsters were severed cleanly at the waist. That familiar sensation surged back through him. The feeling of his former days. The undefeated spear god. The boy stood frozen, unable to speak. In his eyes, Hukun was clearly no ordinary man. He had to be a hunter hiding his true identity. But inside, Hukun burned with anger. The peaceful life he had fought so desperately to reclaim had turned into this. Soon after, with an irritated expression, Hukun led the boy into the underground shelter. The boy's mother recognized her son instantly and rushed forward, thanking Hukun over and over. Seeing her refined appearance and expensive clothing, Hukun paused briefly. So the boy came from a wealthy family. No wonder he had acted so recklessly. Then the building shook. A thunderous impact rocked the entrance as a massive monster smashed its way inside. Panic erupted as people fled in every direction. Everyone, except Hukun. The boy turned back, shouting for him to run. Even Hukun wouldn't stand a chance against something like that. Hukun didn't move. He had thought he'd returned to a familiar world. But now he understood. This place was no different from the other world at all. He asked the boy quietly why, if his family was so wealthy, he still wanted to become a hunter instead of living safely in hiding. The boy answered in a low voice. His father had been killed. They had been hiding in a shelter too, but monsters still found them. From that day on, he understood there was no truly safe place left on Earth. That was why he swore to become a hunter, the strongest hunter, to wipe out all corrosion rifts and save the world, even if it sounded foolish. Before he could finish, Hukun interrupted him. He smiled, a calm, reassuring smile. "You'll become a great hunter one day." Then he added softly, "But unfortunately, you'll never be able to save this world." The boy's mother grabbed him and screamed for him to run. At that exact moment, an explosion thundered behind them. When the boy turned back, his eyes widened. The monster was already dead, killed by Hukun with a single hand. The reason Hukun spoke so confidently was simple. Because saving this world was his job, and he had plenty of experience. Afterward, Hukun returned home to gather information about the world. His account balance made him frown. 3001. The original owner of this body had worked for a logistics company, one that had gone bankrupt due to corrosion rifts. He was unemployed. As Hukun wondered how he was supposed to survive, a notification appeared on his phone. Hunter recruitment notice. The next day, inside the Hunter Association building, a grand selection ceremony was underway. Hunter scouts from countless guilds filled the arena, searching for promising newcomers. One scout scoffed internally. This batch had no standouts, just background characters. Yet the event still drew a legendary presence. A top 10 hunter. The moment she appeared, the entire arena fell silent. People stared in awe. She was someone they usually only saw on the news, yet here she stood in person. Naturally, everyone assumed she had come for one person. Han Sung-ah, the top graduate of the Hunter Academy, a prodigy who had awakened electro-control abilities. What they didn't know was that Lee Son hadn't taken Han Sung-ah seriously at all. At best, she saw her as nothing more than a walking power bank. A colleague beside her commented that Han Sung-ah's abilities could still be useful in certain situations. The man next to them adjusted his sunglasses and said calmly, "Plenty of Academy prodigies collapse the moment they face real combat." Lee Son liked that answer. She casually tossed him a piece of candy. Training and real combat were completely different. For students who had only experienced controlled exercises, adapting to real battle took time, and Han Sung-ah was no exception. Soon, the next match was about to begin. Lee Son leaned forward slightly. "Newcomers, show me strength worth wanting." Down below, the host blinked in surprise as he checked the profile. A civilian? Someone who hasn't even attended the Hunter Academy. Hukun zipped up his combat suit, gripping the association-issued weapon. The host continued mocking him, wondering how much courage, or stupidity, it took to step onto this stage. And now entering the arena, contestant Hukun. Hukun still wasn't used to this new name. The rules were simple. Only association weapons allowed, lethal damage forbidden. For Hukun, the exam was merely a shortcut to authority, resources, and information. Across from him stood a blonde-haired youth wearing an arrogant grin. The moment the referee signaled the start, the youth charged forward, thrilled at the thought of fighting someone who couldn't even gather mana. Hukun's expression didn't change. To him, his opponent was nothing but openings. He drove his weapon into the ground. Then he vanished. Shock flashed across the youth's face. A speed type? By the time the thought formed, Hukun was already behind him. "Your technique is sloppy," Hukun said calmly. "I don't even need a weapon." His fist slammed into the youth's abdomen, nearly making him vomit. As the boy's legs gave out, Hukun forced him upright. A brutal uppercut followed. Crack! The youth's jaw shattered. He was barely conscious. That surprised Hukun. He'd chosen to fight barehanded to avoid injuring him too badly. After a brief pause, he relaxed. Just a rookie. But the sight left Lee Son frozen. "What is this guy?" she muttered, pulling up his profile. "A logistics company employee," someone said. "Almost no mana reserves. Strength like that should take years. If not luck." Lee Son cut him off. "Shut up." A piece of candy bounced off his shoulder. Down below, Hukun rolled his neck. This needed to end decisively. He appeared beside the youth again. "Don't worry," Hukun said evenly. "This punch won't be lethal." The terrified boy begged nonstop. With a dull bang, Hukun knocked him unconscious. The arena erupted into debate. While scouts argued, Lee Son made her decision. She would test him herself. "To see the association president," she said when asked where she was going. Meanwhile, Hukun's matches continued. No one lasted more than 3 moves. He couldn't help wondering what the academy had been teaching. Finally, someone worthy stepped onto the stage. Han Sung-ah. The crowd leaned forward. Hukun glanced at her, then his interest sharpened. Her mana density was the highest he'd seen all day. "You've made it this far on luck alone," Han Sung-ah said coldly. "That ends now." Hukun sneered inwardly. Were these cookie-cutter lines also part of the Hunter Academy curriculum? The next moment, Han Sung-ah slowly drew her blade. Golden light flared in her eyes as she spoke coldly. "You probably don't have any special abilities. But that doesn't mean I'll go easy on you." Her words made Hukun pause. How could he lack special abilities? He simply knew that using them would seriously injure her. Han Sung-ah took a deep breath and dropped into a crouch. Mana streamed toward her hand as golden lightning wrapped around the blade. The weapon trembled faintly, humming with power. Hukun felt a spark of genuine interest. In the next instant, Han Sung-ah burst forward. Teal-green light exploded outward as she unleashed the fully charged draw/slash she had been preparing. Yet it didn't touch him. Hukun simply leapt upward, cleanly avoiding the strike. Han Sung-ah froze. He dodged it. He avoided my lightning draw/slash just by jumping? From Hukun's perspective, the technique itself was fascinating. By electrifying both the blade and scabbard, she created magnetic attraction. Layering that force onto the draw, she had essentially turned the attack into a railgun-style strike. Hukun landed lightly. "So far," he said calmly, "your technique is the best I've seen today." Then his tone sharpened. "But you missed the most important thing, timing. You're too obsessed with speed." Her flaw was obvious. By laying a magnetic rail through space, the attack followed a clear trajectory. No matter how fast it was, an experienced fighter would never take it head-on. Frustration surged through Han Sung-ah. He just got lucky. She drew her sword again and launched an even fiercer assault. "Even without that move, I can still beat someone like you." Reality disappointed her again. Every strike was effortlessly avoided. "You're an idiot," Hukun said coldly. If I can dodge your fastest attack, how could something this simple ever hit me? The words shattered her composure. Driven by rage, Han Sung forcibly compressed mana beyond her limits. Hukun saw it instantly. If she continued, her body would collapse first. In a flash, he appeared before her. Your effort was real, he said calmly. But this fight ends here. Then he added casually, almost amused. If it starts to hurt, raise your left hand. A dull thud echoed as his fist drove into her abdomen. Even without full strength, the blow made her retch violently. Hukun followed up without mercy, a flurry of strikes crashing into her face. One final punch landed. Her consciousness faded. With a heavy crash, the Academy prodigy collapsed, not as a victor, but as the defeated. The arena fell silent. Hukun had completely suppressed Han Sung-ah. Because he looked so unremarkable, many spectators assumed she had relied too heavily on mana while neglecting physical training. Then Hukun sensed movement behind him. He turned, expecting another attack, only to see Han Sung-ah weakly raising her left hand, her body barely upright. Hukun found it oddly amusing. He had casually told her to raise her left hand if it hurt, and she actually did. Truly an academy student. A staff member hurried to the referee and whispered urgently. The referee's expression darkened. Moments later, he announced, "The match schedule has been adjusted. Winner Hukun, please take a short rest." Hukun frowned. Hadn't the match already ended? The referee continued. "Up next, winner Hukun will participate in a special match against an active duty hunter. This has been personally approved by the association president." The massive screen lit up. The crowd erupted. Hukun narrowed his eyes. The opponent was clearly a veteran. A test of strength? He'd seen this before, even in another world. Steel scraped against the arena floor. "Your name is Hukun, right?" The woman's voice was calm, yet overwhelmingly oppressive. "I'm Lee Son. Let me see whether you're still hiding anything." Her gaze was unwavering. "This stage is too small for you. If it feels like too much, you can refuse. I'll understand." When Hukun saw who it was, he let out a bitter smile. So it was Lee Son, the top 10 hunter that kid had mentioned. More importantly, the composure and pressure Lee Son radiated were anything but an act. She was a true professional hunter, someone who had survived countless battles. With Hukun's current body, even wielding a spear, facing her head-on would be difficult. And yet, the corner of Hukun's mouth curved upward. "If you want to test my strength," he said calmly, "then come." The referee froze. "Aren't you going to rest first?" Lee Son caught the unmistakable fighting spirit burning in Hukun's eyes and smiled faintly. "Looks like you're the same type as me." Hukun returned the smile, excitement flashing through him. "Then let me see if the strongest in this world is worthy of my acknowledgement." The next instant, both of them moved. A fierce battle erupted. The clash left the audience stunned. Even the referee broke into a sweat, unsure how to commentate on what he was witnessing. After blocking another of Lee Son's attacks, Hukun showed no sign of relief. He could feel just how powerful she was, overwhelming strength packed into a female body, rivaling any male hunter. To break free from her assault, Hukun twisted his wrist, spinning the spear shaft and knocking her strike aside with full force. Lee Son staggered back several steps. Even so, her expression remained calm. She was still testing him, holding back her true power. Hukun's speed had begun to drop. After fighting an S-rank hunter for so long, exhaustion was finally showing. It wasn't that Lee Son lacked openings. His current body simply couldn't keep up with instincts honed through endless life-and-death battles. Lee Son, meanwhile, was growing genuinely excited. It had been a long time since she'd met someone like him. Though their power levels differed, Hukun truly deserved to be called strong. Stepping forward, she spoke with clear approval. "You've done remarkably well. I thought you'd last 5 minutes at most. I didn't expect 30. Before the words settled, she charged again. "Since you're already tired, I'll make this easier for you. It's time to step down." Hukun tightened his grip on the spear. There was no mana stored in his body, and the mana in the air was scarce. He exhaled slowly, forcing his mind into absolute calm. This wasn't a move he wanted to use, but he had no choice. As Lee Son attacked, Hukun leaned back sharply, eyes locked onto her movements. The instant she exposed an opening, he unleashed it. Paradox flame. Black fire erupted. Shock flashed through Lee Son's eyes, but instead of retreating, She cut straight through it. Her blade cleaved the attack in two. She realized immediately he hadn't injured her. Hukun retreated at once, widening the distance. A satisfied smile appeared on her face. That should have left you unable to dodge, yet you still did. Her gaze sharpened. That black aura, what is it? You used it to attack me, didn't you? I cut it apart. Hukun answered calmly. That's Paradox Flame. My final trump card. In another world, it was the power I trusted most. It isn't ordinary fire. It can't burn physical matter. That's why my clothes remain intact. Each flame consumes abstract concepts I choose as fuel. With my current output, I can't ignite high-level concepts like identity, memory, or reason. In the next instant, Hukun surged forward. His spear spun violently, roaring through the air. Right now, he said evenly, the only thing I can burn is my own fatigue. The change stunned Li Son. Your speed, it's faster than before. Were you still holding back? Hukun ignored her. His figure blurred, appearing directly in front of her as his spear slashed out. Disbelief filled her eyes. You recovered that much strength already. How is that possible? She vanished with a sharp whoosh. In the next heartbeat, she reappeared before him at nearly the same speed. Steel clashed in a rapid, ringing exchange. As the fight dragged on, Li Son sensed something was wrong. The mana density in the air kept fluctuating, yet the arena's formations were unchanged. That left only one conclusion. All of it was being caused by Hukun's Paradox Flame. Just as ordinary fire releases energy by burning matter, Paradox Flame released mana by consuming abstract concepts. Hukun used mana to ignite the flame. In turn, the flame burned his fatigue to generate more mana, which reignited the flame again and again, forming a self-sustaining loop. Fatigue was consumed, converted into mana, and fed back into the flame without end. In short, Hukun specialized in endurance combat. The longer the battle dragged on, the worse his opponent's condition became, while Hukun maintained a constant state of half-fatigue and continued fighting without collapse. At that moment, Li Son suddenly appeared before him and swung her sword. Clang! Her strike shattered the arena floor, yet still failed to hit him. Li Son raised her head slowly. Her expression was calm, but the pressure she radiated was overwhelming. Do you really intend to keep going? Hukun stepped out of the swirling dust. At that moment, he looked like someone clinging stubbornly to another's leg, refusing to let go. He chuckled. I planned to drag this into a war of attrition from the beginning. And now you're telling me to give up. Straightening slightly, he added, I can keep going right now. You know that. Then he mocked her openly. So tell me, does someone as shameless as me earn your approval? For the first time, fatigue appeared in Li Son's eyes. She had deliberately suppressed her strength to fight him on equal footing. If she fought seriously, the match could have ended in a single strike. She spoke evenly. I doubt anyone would like someone who doesn't know when to stop. When you burn a tree, all that remains is ash. An ash that has already burned cannot be burned again. Paradox Flame is the same. It leaves residue. When everything is reduced to ash, she continued calmly, that is when the flame disappears and when your life ends. She glanced at the timer on her wrist. 4 hours and 17 minutes. At this point, Hukun was completely pinned to the ground. Looking down at him, she asked, You've held out for a long time. Do you still want to continue? Hukun answered instantly. Please let me go. If this keeps going, I'll actually die. With his withdrawal, the winner was officially declared. Li Son. She reached into her coat and pulled out a lollipop. The moment it appeared, her subordinates froze. Li Son casually tossed it toward Hukun, along with a business card. That's your reward, she said. My card's in there too. Make sure you call me. Hukun glanced at it. Partner of Jean Noir BLLC. Headhunter, Li Son. Lowering her voice, she added, We'll talk details later. Call me after you've rested. 2.5 hours later, Hukun crushed the lollipop between his teeth, staring in disbelief at the smart device in front of him. In his original era, identity meant handwritten documents. Now this single phone handled authentication, trading, messaging, and calls, almost like magical long-distance communication. A massive man suddenly stepped in front of him. You're Hunter Hukun, right? You look better in person. The man stood well over 2 meters tall and handed him a card. Tai by Company Limited. Isong Hyan. Isong Hyan stated his purpose plainly. He wanted Hukun to join his team. With proper experience, he believed Hukun would truly shine. The man didn't seem to be lying. Yet Lee Son's expression surfaced in Hukun's mind, the faint blush, and her insistence that he call her. Hukun put the card away. I already have prior commitments. I need time to think. Lee Song Hyan laughed. Did you think I'd force you? Take all the time you need. Then he pressed a hand down on Hukun's shoulder. Hukun met his gaze, sharp and unyielding. Lee Song Hyan only said, think carefully. I trust you're a smart man. He turned and walked away. That bluntness alone convinced Hukun. He wouldn't be joining that guild, nor would he even consider it. 10 minutes later, Hukun called Lee Song. She sent an address immediately, a small shop on the second floor of the Hunter Association. When he arrived, he saw the sign. The cabin. The staff greeted him warmly. Welcome. The person inside has been waiting for you. Hearing Hukun's footsteps, Lee Song turned and waved him over. She looked mildly surprised by how early he'd arrived and asked if something had happened. Hukun briefly explained. Someone had tried to recruit him into a guild, a massive guy, to be precise. Lee Song nodded calmly. That would be Lee Song Hyan from the Tai Bai Guild. Once he takes interest in someone, most other guilds back off. Hukun chuckled softly. So even your guild is wary of him? If that's true, I'll admit I'm a little disappointed. To his surprise, Lee Song didn't try to recruit him at all. Instead, she asked casually, what do you think about working without joining any guild? Hukun blinked. You mean, as a freelancer? That immediately caught his attention. Lee Song was clearly thinking differently from everyone else. She was suggesting that guild missions didn't necessarily require guild membership. She added evenly, Yoon Hyun Song would probably only offer you an entry-level position. Hukun slammed his hand on the table. An entry-level role? Then what exactly is a partner hunter supposed to be? Lee Song explained. Guild hunters are divided into 3 ranks: entry-level, senior, and partner. Entry-level and senior hunters work in teams led by partner hunters. They're essentially salaried employees. She paused before continuing. Partner hunters don't receive fixed salaries. They hold shares in the guild and receive a portion of its net profits. In practice, they're co-owners. The system sounded exactly like a law firm. Lee Song mentioned that when hunter guilds were first established, their structure had been modeled after legal practices. In her view, Hukun didn't need to start at the bottom and climb step by step. Hukun understood immediately. If he built enough reputation and achieved results no one could ignore, guilds would seek him out on their own. That realization clearly pleased Lee Song. Conversation with him felt effortless. What puzzled Hukun, however, was her habit of handing him candy. Since sitting down, she'd already given him 2. Still, a practical problem remained. He had no connections, no resources. How was he supposed to secure worthwhile commissions? Lee Song waved it off. That's not an issue. I can help with that, for free. That only made Hukun more suspicious. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Why are you doing this? Lee Song reached into a folder. When you're famous enough that guilds compete to recruit you, I just want you to remember one thing. She met his gaze. That there was once a woman who helped you. To Hukun, it sounded like she wanted him to owe her a favor. She slid the folder toward him. Take a look. Accepting it is your choice. Hukun opened it. It was a commission from Incheon City, targeting Jiaodong Island. 2 years earlier, an attempt to eliminate a corrosion rift there had failed, leaving behind a corrupted zone. The task wasn't to destroy the rift itself, but to patrol the island, monitor for new rifts, and eliminate them if they appeared. Start date, 1 month later. Advance payment, 5 million won. Completion reward, 15 million won. Hukun closed the folder. For a job this dangerous, the pay isn't generous. Lee Song smiled instead. Then get stronger. Get famous. Once you're valuable enough, money will chase you. She waited for his answer. Yes or no? Hukun replied slowly. If you put it that way, I'm in. A faint smile crossed his face. I enjoy pushing my limits. 30 minutes later, 2 cars sped down the highway. At the same time, Lee Song was on the phone with a mysterious man. He's a civilian who cleared a weapon-restricted tournament barehanded. The reply was simple. Not bad. Lee Song laughed. That's underselling it. He fought me head-on for over 4 hours. The voice hesitated. Even with your power suppressed. Lee Song's tone turned cold. I'm a veteran with over a decade of combat experience. By all logic, I should have toyed with him. She paused. Instead, I was locked in battle for 4 hours. A bold thought crossed her mind. Even if she were given another chance at life, Lee Son doubted she would ever encounter a monster like Hukun again. After a brief pause, the man on the other end of the call replied, "No matter how highly you rate him, that mission requires hunters with real field experience. Even if he's talented, can he hold his own alongside veterans?" Lee Son answered calmly, "I've already arranged for someone experienced to work with him." The man hesitated, then asked, "And what if that kid eventually reaches your level?" Lee Son smirked coldly. "This might make you uncomfortable, but you'll have to accept it." Her answer was blunt. "If Hukun ever reaches my level, even a boss might not be able to stop him." 1 month earlier, Hukun received a package he'd ordered online. The delivery driver complained nonstop while hauling it down the hallway. "This thing's ridiculously heavy. What did the buyer even order?" Once the driver left, Hukun brought the package inside. A long black case soon rested on his table. With a sharp click, he opened it. His eyes widened slightly. The spear inside matched his expectations perfectly. Its balance, structure, everything felt right. Using it in combat wouldn't be an issue. Beside it lay a small vial of green liquid, a spirit potion. Hunters relied on these in emergencies. Packed with condensed mana, they allowed rapid replenishment when mana was urgently needed. Normally, hunters drew mana from the air, stored it in their bodies, then released it when necessary. A spirit potion compressed that entire process into moments. Hukun, however, used mana differently. He skipped storage altogether, absorbing mana directly from the air and using it immediately. The advantage was clear. There was no hard upper limit. As mana flowed through his body repeatedly, his internal channels gradually strengthened. The downside was control. Before those channels fully matured, he couldn't unleash powerful bursts in short windows. With no time to wait, the safest option was to store mana in advance. Hukun downed the entire vial. If he trained like this for a month, he was confident he'd reach the level he needed. 1 month later, Jiaodong Island, Incheon. A long line of hunters gathered at the assembly point, preparing for the operation. After verification, Hukun was assigned to Squad 8. He waited beneath a sign marked with the number. Nearby, hunters chatted excitedly. "This month's payout should be good. I wonder when we're moving out." While Hukun meditated quietly, someone called his name. He turned to see Han Sung-ah. Her hair was noticeably shorter, clearly a practical choice for combat. She approached, intending to team up with him. Hukun asked curiously, "With this many hunters, why choose me?" She answered honestly, "I think you're strong. I want to observe your fighting style and learn from it." Hukun was speechless. Another burden, he thought, and one I won't be shaking off anytime soon. "If you can keep up," he said calmly, "then follow me." Before anything else could be said, a staff member interrupted. "Now that all members of Squad 8 are present, we'll begin the mission briefing. Since we have first-time participants, I'll explain the basics. Veteran hunters, please bear with me. Corrosion rifts are classified as Level 1, Level 2, Level 3, and unranked. The closer a rift is to Level 1, the more dangerous it becomes. The first rift to appear in any area is designated as an Alpha. At present, Jiaodong Island's Alpha Rift is located at a church in northern Insuri. Although it's still unranked, due to the unpredictability of escalation, approaching it is strongly discouraged. Your task is to patrol Wingneri and eastern Jiaodong Island, identify any new rifts, and eliminate them if they appear. A dissatisfied voice rose from the squad. "You're sending a rookie on a rift mission? Are you serious?" The staff member ignored the complaint entirely. Without another word, he led the team toward the operation zone. Once they arrived, Hukun overheard warnings about how dangerous the area was. Even from a distance, people claimed they could feel a bone-chilling presence, as if their blood were about to freeze. To Hukun, it sounded overly dramatic. Han Sung-ah lightly tapped his thigh with the back of her blade, signaling him to move. The operation had officially begun. A staff member's voice echoed through the communicator. "Island conditions are being relayed in real time to the offshore control room. If you need assistance, contact us immediately. Hunters, I wish you the best." After reaching their assigned zone, the group gathered to discuss an action plan. Their mission required surveying 2 regions within a week. As the discussion heated up, Hukun spoke. He pointed at the map on his phone. "I suggest setting up a base at Huizhou Temple and operating outward. Several people reacted instantly. Who are you? I've never seen you before. Are you a rookie? Why Wazio Temple? Don't think a newbie gets to give orders. Hukun ignored the hostility and explained calmly. From Wazio Temple, we can overlook the Yenari area. The buildings are intact and suitable for lodging. That's basic field logic. Did none of you consider it? Instead of calming down, they grew angrier. There are plenty of places nearby. What if we get surrounded on the mountain? Hukun let out a cold laugh. We're not fighting tens of thousands of enemies. How exactly do you expect to get surrounded? His response only fueled their anger. No matter what, we're not taking orders from an inexperienced hunter. At that point, Hukun realized something simple. No matter the world, some people would always ignore basic logic. So he made a clean decision mid-argument. They would split up. They could follow their plan. He would follow his. Hukun assumed only Han Sung-ah would come with him. Instead, a third person joined them. Glancing sideways, Hukun sensed the man's mana level was slightly higher than Han Sung-ah's. Kim Min-jae. Curious, Hukun asked why he'd tagged along. The answer made him chuckle. Kim Min-jae explained that since both of them were likely on their first mission, he worried 2 rookies alone might get into trouble. So he decided to keep an eye on them. At least one dependable person, Hukun thought. Suddenly, Hukun's gaze snapped forward. Something was wrong. He abruptly changed direction, causing the other 2 to freeze. Hukun raised his left hand, signaling them to stop. He gestured for silence and quietly told them he'd check ahead. Kim Min-jae cautiously peeked forward. His breath caught. Dozens of monsters were charging through the forest. Roughly 50. Kim Min-jae immediately suggested taking a detour and avoiding a direct fight. Hukun raised a hand. Don't panic. What's your unique skill? Kim Min-jae hesitated. Hukun's expression sharpened. That hesitation made him serious. Hunting corrupted creatures is natural for hunters. I'll ask again, what's your skill? Kim Min-jae answered. Fire attribute. His most reliable ability was Fireball. Good, Hukun said. Wait for my signal. Then he launched the first attack. Kim Min-jae froze. He hadn't expected such a decisive call and couldn't immediately follow Hukun's thinking. Before he could react, Han Sung-ah asked, if Min-jae attacks, what should I do? Kim Min-jae tried to stop them. 3 of us against 50 is reckless. We should regroup while we still can. Hukun shook his head. No time. It would take too long for the others to reach us. Their positions were different. Hukun's group had departed directly from Wazio Temple, while the others were still sweeping the coastline. Blind radio use wasn't smart either. There was no guarantee anyone could arrive in time. Worse, if the monsters scattered while they waited, they could threaten other teams. Once Kim Min-jae calmed down and followed the logic through, he realized. Hukun was right. Even if other hunters were nearby, there was no guarantee they would rush over, especially after the earlier conflict. That meant only the 3 of them could deal with the monsters. Under such unfavorable conditions, a surprise attack was their best option. That made Kim Min-jae's fireball critical. Hukun didn't waste time explaining. Min-jae, hit the center with a fireball. I'll block both flanks and keep them from escaping. Kim Min-jae froze. The plan was so precise it felt as though Hukun had already accounted for every outcome. For a moment, Min-jae wondered what kind of person Hukun really was. He felt like a leader forged through countless battles. They waited. Soon, the monsters clustered together. That was the signal. Kim Min-jae unleashed his fireball without hesitation. Flames erupted into the group before the monsters could react, reducing several to ash instantly. The power was overwhelming. But casting again required time. During that window, Hukun would hold the line. Kim Min-jae clasped his hands near his forehead, compressing mana. At the same time, Hukun shot forward, his speed nearly impossible to track. Killing intent filled his eyes. His only goal was to pin the monsters in place and buy time. With a burst of speed and a sweeping strike, Hukun cut down several rift monsters. Their roles were clear. His job was to buy time until the next fireball was ready. A monster lunged at him. Hukun ignored it. He swung his spear in a wide arc, dropping several more creatures in one motion. None of them would reach Kim Min-jae. Still, holding the line alone wouldn't be enough forever. Your turn, Hukun called. A sharp draw slash rang out beside him. Han Sung-ah shattered 3 goblins with a single strike. She exhaled sharply. That's all I can do for now. From here on, it was up to Kim Min-jae. Almost immediately, blazing mana surged. The fireball was ready. Hukun signaled him. Wait. Fire after I move. The instant Hukun cleared the area, Kim Min-jae released the spell. The blazing mass crashed into the remaining monsters like a runaway beast. A thunderous explosion tore through the forest where Hukun had stood moments earlier. He had already leapt clear. Tightening his grip on the spear, Hukun scanned the chaos. Two monsters tried to flee. He didn't let them. As the smoke cleared, Hukun planted his spear into the ground. The ambush was a complete success. Every monster had been eliminated, though all three were clearly exhausted. Hukun was about to praise their coordination when he sensed something behind him. He turned. Kim Min-jae was aiming a handgun straight at his head, expression tense. Then Min-jae grinned. Mind moving? You're blocking my target. Hukun was momentarily speechless. A split second later, Min-jae fired twice. The shots dropped a monster hidden behind Hukun. They began implanting microchips into the corpses. Once the mission ended and the area was declared safe, contracted salvage dealers would retrieve the bodies. These specialists extracted usable materials, appraised them, sold them, and distributed the profits, taking their commission before the remainder went to the families of fallen hunters. Hukun asked if the dealers could be trusted. Min-jae assured him that with a reliable contractor and a proper agreement, it was safe. As they spoke, a monster lay hidden among the trees, watching Hukun. In the next instant, it attacked, stone fragments exploding across the ground. Hukun reacted immediately. He grabbed Kim Min-jae and yanked him clear of the impact zone. Otherwise, both would have been badly injured. Once clear, Hukun tossed Min-jae aside and turned to face the creature. Kim Min-jae felt frustration surge in his chest. They had just wiped out an entire group of monsters, yet another one appeared. The creature let out a chilling laugh, opening its mouth to reveal rows of grotesque fangs. Hukun's expression hardened. This was clearly the leader of the earlier monsters. With a piercing roar, the creature's howl echoed through the forest. No one could tell whether it was calling for reinforcements. Hukun cursed under his breath. If it was going to fight anyway, why hadn't it charged in with its underlings earlier? Challenging all three of them alone was nothing but suicide. The bat-like leader let out a shrill, grating laugh. Hukun could feel the mana surging within it. This was on a completely different level from the lesser monsters. Hukun shouted for his teammates to stay back. Don't interfere, he ordered. I'll handle it alone. The creature's power was overwhelming. If it closed the distance, none of them would be able to escape. The two froze. Normally, a monster like this required all three of them fighting together. Hukun cut them off sharply. I'll say this once. Retreat. Now. His voice grew colder. Unless you want to go home with your heads separated from your bodies. The word stunned them. That was a terrifying way to put it. Hukun shook his spear and repeated himself. Leave. Immediately. Fighting alone would allow him to unleash his full strength without restraint. He roared at the creature. Come on. Then, you damn bat leader. In the next moment, Hukun clashed head-on with the monster. Han Sung-ah instinctively moved to help, but Kim Min-jae grabbed her arm. Now's not the time, he said urgently. We'd only hold him back. And despite appearances, Hukun wasn't being overwhelmed at all. Not a single one of the bat leader's attacks had landed, not even brushing the edge of Hukun's clothes. Han Sung-ah noticed something else as well. Hukun's speed and perception were terrifying. If she were the one fighting, she doubted she could dodge even half of those attacks. With a twist of his waist, Hukun slipped past another strike and countered in the same motion. Wherever his spear passed, darkness followed. As the black flames continued to build, the bat leader's movements grew slower and slower. Though it looked like a fierce struggle, the truth was simple. Hukun was toying with it. Han Sung-ah stood frozen in shock. Was Hukun really a rookie hunter? He looked far more like a veteran hardened by countless life-and-death battles. At that moment, the monster leader launched another furious attack. Hukun let out a low laugh. Perfect. Let's see if you're even worth me going all out. In the next instant, his body skimmed across the ground as he slid backward, creating distance. Then he hurled his spear straight into the air. Han Sung-ah was stunned. Throwing his weapon away at a moment like this, what was he thinking? From above, the spear began to fall as the monster charged straight toward Hukun. Kim Min-jae was equally shocked. At the most dangerous moment, Hukun had seemingly discarded his weapon. In a split second, the monster closed the distance. Hukun didn't panic. He simply stared at it, expressionless. With a wet, heavy thud, the monster's head dropped to the ground in front of him. The spear Hukun had thrown moments earlier came crashing down from above, piercing straight through the creature's neck. Even impaled, the monster still struggled, proof of its terrifying vitality. But the outcome was already decided. Before the others could even react, Hukun yanked the spear free and drove it repeatedly into the monster's head, ending it for good. Kim Min-jae stood there in disbelief. Just moments ago, it had looked like Hukun was on the brink of being overwhelmed, and now the monster was dead. What just happened, he muttered. Hukun turned to Kim Min-jae and asked calmly, "Is it really normal for something like this to show up here?" Kim Min-jae shared the same doubts. For a creature that wasn't even a true corruption core unit, if this area were a corruption zone, it should have been rated at least level 3. Corruption units were divided into 4 levels. According to the briefing, the Alpha Corrosion Rift on Bridge East Island was listed as unranked. That left only one explanation. The Alpha Corrosion Rift had already escalated to level 3. This needed to be reported immediately. Han Sung-ah hesitated, but Hukun cut in calmly. "Think it through. If it weren't level 3, none of this would make sense." Kim Min-jae's expression darkened. The gap between unranked and level 3 was enormous. If this was true, very few hunters on the island would make it back alive. This island was far more dangerous than expected. The situation had to be escalated at once. Kim Min-jae suggested they go rescue the other hunters immediately. With Hukun's strength, even a level 3 zone might be manageable. Hukun rejected the idea without hesitation. Hukun couldn't possibly find and save every hunter still operating on the island. He had limits too. He stated it firmly. Their mission wasn't to rescue endangered hunters, but to identify and eliminate additional corrosion rifts. In work like this, casualties were unavoidable. Han Sung-ah hesitated, then asked quietly, "If you were in their position, how do you think you'd feel?" "If you were the one in danger," she continued, "wouldn't you feel wronged? Angry? Desperate to be saved?" Hukun's expression darkened completely. "Are you trying to save them with the mindset of the dead?" he asked coldly. He wasn't dismissing emotions. He was talking about outcomes. "If you want to go save them, I won't stop you," he said. "Just don't force that choice on me." He told them to abandon that naive savior mentality. There were deaths in this world that simply couldn't be avoided. When facing such an end, no matter what emotions he carried, he would accept it with the resolve to die. If saving a handful of hunters caused the corrosion rift to worsen and led to even more deaths across the island, that would be the real sin. In desperate situations, hesitation was the most dangerous thing of all. If they continued bringing emotions into missions like this, they wouldn't survive long. As night fell, the group settled into an abandoned house as a temporary shelter. It was empty, with no sign that corrupted creatures had lingered there. Kim Min-jae checked the surroundings thoroughly. Aside from dim lights scattered across the area, nothing seemed unusual. Those lights allowed them to roughly track the positions of other squads. To Hukun, however, they were a liability. The lights exposed their location. Against minor enemies, the risk was manageable. But if something like the Bat Leader appeared, it would be fatal. Hukun pulled out his phone and sent a warning. "This is Squad 8. Based on recent encounters, the Alpha Corrosion Rift may have escalated to level 3. Excessive lighting could attract high-risk targets. Avoid it if possible. Once a rift's core was destroyed, all creatures sustained by it would vanish. Without its energy source, the corrupted zone itself would collapse." After thinking it through, Hukun found the mission surprisingly straightforward. It wasn't nearly as difficult as people made it sound. When the time came, he would deal with the rift directly. Night fully settled in. Han Sung-ah fell asleep first. Kim Min-jae followed soon after. Hukun quietly placed an alarm device beside them. If monsters approached, it would trigger, allowing him to leave without concern. Once outside, Hukun moved swiftly through the forest. He already knew the Alpha Rift's location from the briefing. This night operation should go smoothly. Then he sensed it. Movement. He stopped abruptly, eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. A familiar, unsettling laugh echoed through the trees. Hukun's expression hardened. He had known things were going too smoothly. Without hesitation, he ignited his flames. But when he turned to face the threat, He froze. This wasn't the monster he expected. The creature before him was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Its massive body towering over him, far larger than the Bat Leader could ever compare to. At the same time, chaos erupted at Hunter Association headquarters. Signals from several members of Squad 5 went dark, presumed dead. More casualty reports followed. What the hell is happening out there? The officer in charge rushed to communications, requesting immediate reinforcements and issuing a high-priority distress call. Another alert came in. Someone was rapidly approaching the Alpha Corrosion Rift's core. The leader ordered immediate contact. Whoever it was needed to stop. Whatever lay ahead was extremely dangerous. Then the identity data appeared. Everyone froze. The hunter heading straight for the core was Hukun of Squad 8. That meant he was likely the first to locate the Corrosion Rift's core. An immediate live feed was ordered. A rift escalating mid-operation had never happened before. In the chaos, Hukun had been the first to detect the anomaly and had rushed toward it alone. The feed connected. On the screen, Hukun wasn't fighting. He was sprinting for his life, relentlessly pursued by a monster. The creature was far stronger than Hukun had anticipated, and its speed was terrifying. Moments later, his voice echoed through the Hunter Association's emergency channel. The monster behind me is absurdly powerful. The fact that I'm still alive is pure luck. As he sprinted through the forest, Hukun cursed openly. Weren't there people assigned to investigate this place? How did no warning come through at all? When I get back, I'm shoving the corrosion core down every last one of their throats. At headquarters, staff exchanged awkward glances. In the end, they muted his terminal. Knowing he was still alive was enough. Hukun knew his limits. In his current condition, killing that monster head-on was impossible. His only option was to wear it down and finish it with a decisive spear strike. But the creature chasing him defied expectations. It showed no sign of weakening. During the daytime fight with the Bat Leader, Hukun had drained an excessive amount of mana from Jiadong Island, severely weakening that enemy. That meant he couldn't leave the island now. He needed mana, fast. Then his eyes sharpened. Ahead of him, a pitch-black hole gaped open in the ground, like a bottomless abyss. Without hesitation, Hukun leapt straight in. As he fell, he glanced back and taunted the monster. "Hurry up. There's something I want to check." At the same moment, Hukun's signal vanished from the association's monitors. The reason was simple. He had entered the Alpha Corrosion core. When the report came in, the leader's face went pale. This was bad. Very bad. Inside the core, Hukun realized it was far cleaner than expected. There was barely any visible corrosion. He frowned. According to prior data, even Tier 3 and Tier 5 cores spread corruption rapidly. So how extreme were Tier 1 and Tier 2 supposed to be? Crossing the boundary fully, Hukun tightened his grip on his spear. What awaited him wasn't the real danger yet, but its prelude. Hukun wasn't one to obsess over fights. But when something kept provoking him, his patience ran thin. One of Paradox Flame's greatest flaws was its uncontrollable spread. Once it exceeded a certain threshold, it affected every living being except Hukun himself, including allies. That was what made it terrifying and fundamentally dangerous. When it passed the level he could control, he had no choice but to stop. That limitation was absolute. A monster appeared ahead. Hukun thrust his spear without hesitation. The creature shrieked once, then froze. Hukun exhaled lightly. Job done. He immediately began drawing mana from the surrounding air, guiding and compressing it within his body. The surge widened and reinforced his channels. A deep breath escaped him, faint demonic energy leaking with it. The result was astonishing, far beyond his expectations. Cracks began to form across the sky. Hukun glanced upward, unfazed. Looks like there's more coming. Moments later, several identical monsters emerged from the rift. Unfortunately for them, they were too late. Hukun's refinement was complete. This level of enemy no longer posed a threat. 3 monsters charged him. With a flick of his spear, Hukun sneered. "You really are brainless. Do you still think numbers matter?" Mana erupted from his body, tearing them apart before they could even approach. Not a single one touched his clothes. He was several times stronger than before. Yet compared to his power in the other world, it was still pitiful, barely 1%. Then, a shadow appeared behind him. A sneak attack. A chill ran down his spine. When did it get that close? Almost as the attack began, Hukun had already moved. The creature revealed itself, a humanoid body topped with a rat's head. Its corrosion core radiated power on an entirely different level. Instead of fear, Hukun felt intrigued. How many chain strikes can you endure? He surged forward, spear whirling. One thrust. The rat-headed creature blocked it and scoffed. Too slow. What it didn't realize was that the strike wasn't fast, but it was heavy enough to crack its weapon. Hukun locked eyes with it. Twin Moon Spear, first strike, pierce. In the next instant, mana exploded outward, blasting the creature backward. Hukun pressed the advantage immediately, beating it down before it could even understand what had happened. Twin Moon Spear was Hukun's signature technique. Each thrust left behind a blue trajectory in the air, one that perfectly replicated the original strike for additional times. If Hukun simply followed those paths, it would amount to a basic chaining technique, guaranteeing successive hits. But that wasn't Twin Moon Spear's true nature. Those blue trajectories could act independently. They detached from his movements, curving through space like twin demonic boomerangs and striking from unpredictable angles. Against a delayed, multi-layered assault like this, evasion was nearly impossible. Hukun saw no hidden trump card the rat-headed creature could use to turn the tables. It was struck again. Once an opening appeared, the end was inevitable. Hukun unleashed a relentless barrage. Every strike echoed fourfold, battering the creature's body toward collapse. Even its head was reduced by half, yet it still seemed to believe this wasn't the end. Then, abruptly, a box appeared in Hukun's hand. He opened it. The instant he saw what lay inside, Hukun froze. At the same time, Hunter headquarters descended into chaos. Corrosion rifts spread outward from the center of Bridge East Island as team signals vanished one after another. The leader stared at the screens in disbelief. Everything had spiraled beyond expectation. Despair filled his eyes. Was this truly the end? Without a miracle, all they could do was watch the hunters be wiped out. Then a subordinate shouted, "Sir, you need to see this." A message just came in from inside the Alpha Core. The leader switched the feed to the main screen. Every channel displayed the same message. The corrosion core signal has vanished. All corruption entities have disappeared. The Alpha Core has been eradicated. The leader could hardly breathe. A miracle. After sending the message, Hukun let out a long breath. He looked up at the sky. Countless stars remained visible, and the air felt clean. Far cleaner than in the other world. 2 minutes earlier, a massive wave of monsters surged from the rift. Han Sung-ah fought beside her teammates, her body covered in wounds. Her grip faltered. She could barely hold her blade. Yet resolve surged through her. She braced her arm and forced her fingers tight around the sword. The monsters before them were far more numerous than before. And worse, they hadn't found Hukun. From behind her, Kim Min-jae called out shakily, "Ms. Han, do you think we'll survive?" It wasn't an unreasonable fear. A dense mass of monsters stood ahead, enough to trample them instantly. Han Sung-ah glanced back. Kim Min-jae had reached his limit. She didn't know if they would live. She didn't know how long she could last. But she knew one thing. She could not fall here. A monster lunged at her. Lightning erupted as she lowered her stance. Only then realizing her legs had gone numb. 3 more monsters closed in. Kim Min-jae panicked, powerless to help. One monster opened its jaws, aiming for her neck. Unable to watch, Kim Min-jae squeezed his eyes shut. 5 seconds passed. No scream came. When they opened their eyes, every monster had vanished, reduced to drifting ash. The next day, Hukun regrouped with them at the Hunter assembly point. His expression darkened at the sight. So many injured. Had the rift gone berserk while he was gone? When others saw him, disbelief spread. "You cleared a level 3 corrosion rift alone?" Looking at his lean frame, no one could reconcile it. Hukun stopped when he reached Squad 8. Kim Min-jae was stunned. Hukun gave a quiet chuckle. "It wasn't a conscious choice," he said. "My body moved before my mind did." His gaze swept over the wounded. "Everything I did was simply to protect my fellow hunters." Since everything had gone so smoothly, Hukun figured it was time to properly play the role of the good guy and wash away the villainous image he'd earned earlier. Just then, someone called out from behind him. The man introduced himself as Park Young-kai, a branch manager from the Korean Operations Company. Hukun glanced at him and asked flatly, "So you're the one who sent me here?" Park Young-kai smiled politely and gestured for him to come along, explaining that the mayor wanted to meet him personally. Hukun had lost count of how many times he'd been summoned like this. Being ordered around seemed to be a chronic habit of old men in power. As he climbed into the car, something suddenly occurred to him. The contract never mentioned any additional reward for eliminating a level 3 threat. Since he was already here, it made sense to talk numbers. After stepping out of the car, another man approached and greeted him proactively. "My name is Lee Bitjay," the man said. "I'm a coordinator in charge of partnership negotiations." As they walked, Lee explained that the mayor had been eagerly awaiting this meeting. When the Bridge East Island report came in at dawn, the mayor had been completely stunned. He immediately ordered this meeting to be arranged, canceling all other appointments just to speak with Hukun. A newcomer destroying a level 3 origin alone was something that hadn't happened since the era of the first-generation veteran hunters. Hukun hadn't expected to hear that someone in the distant past had accomplished the same feat. Whoever it was must have been an extraordinary figure. Soon after, Hukun arrived at the mayor's office. A slightly heavy-set man greeted him with a warm smile. "Welcome. My name is Park John, mayor of this city. My apologies for calling you out on such a gloomy day." He then invited Hukun into his private cafe, suggesting they sit down and talk properly. As mayor of Incheon, Bridge East Island had long been a major headache for him. Only by resolving it could funding be approved, and negotiations with high-end corporations and guilds had always been notoriously difficult. Hukun took a sip of his coffee, calmly thinking that now was the perfect moment to squeeze the mayor for a proper payout. When the mayor learned that, on paper, Hukun was still classified as a newcomer, his expression unexpectedly brightened. He actually looked proud. That reaction genuinely puzzled Hukun. He couldn't quite understand how the situation had suddenly taken this turn. The mayor soon explained. Incheon was one of the country's core regions. Thanks to its world-class airport infrastructure, massive logistics networks flowed through it every day. On top of that, the Free Economic Zone initiative had turned places like Songdo and Chongmya into international hubs, attracting so many foreign investors that choices had become overwhelming. With enormous capital circulating through the metropolitan area and goods constantly moving through the airport, everything pointed toward Hukun's path as a hunter being unusually smooth, almost as if it had been deliberately paved. At that point, Hukun interrupted him. "There's something I want to clarify first," he said calmly. "If you're offering support on this scale, I assume you want something in return." His gaze sharpened. "For example, helping a mayor whose approval ratings are slipping secure a successful re-election." The mayor cleared his throat and gave a wry smile. "You really are well informed," he admitted. "Smartphones don't let anything stay hidden these days." Hukun had looked it up himself. The mayor's term was set to end early next year, and by most accounts, his chances of re-election were slim. A bead of sweat formed at the mayor's temple. "You're very blunt," he said. "But during this process, wouldn't approval from the Incheon city government be necessary?" Unlike public announcements, as a newcomer, Hukun did in fact need the mayor's permission to move freely. And if handled skillfully, the mayor could easily promote himself as the one who had discovered a genius hunter, folding Hukun's achievements into his own narrative and even claiming partial credit. The mayor continued, explaining that thanks to the infrastructure he'd mentioned earlier, he maintained close ties with numerous domestic and international corporations. Pressing a hand against a coffee package on the table, he offered an example. "This brand's endorsement contract is about to expire. Your face could easily be printed on the packaging, and that's far from the only opportunity." At that moment, Hukun interrupted him again. His tone was calm, but sharp. "I must look pretty cheap to you, don't I?" The mayor's expression stiffened instantly, clearly caught off guard. Who could blame him? Anyone following the news lately could tell. This world was desperate for a new face. Someone who could cut cleanly through the gloom hanging over it. His gaze hardened as he continued. "You keep saying you can give me everything, but those are things I would eventually take for myself anyway. Don't you think that's unfair?" The mayor hurriedly offered additional proposals, selective access to high-paying commissions, priority assignments, and exclusive opportunities reserved for him alone. To Hukun, it was all unbearably dull. He waved a hand dismissively and rose from his seat, clearly done with the conversation. "Please pass along my congratulations to the coffee brand's current model," he said calmly. Thanks to my refusal, they can keep their job. With that, he turned and left without another glance. Elsewhere, beneath a bridge far removed from the city's lights, two men stood hidden in the shadows. One of them spoke quietly. It appears the Bridge East Island experiment has failed. The man kneeling before him lowered his head repeatedly, apologizing over and over. Still, he added cautiously, but there is one piece of good news. At the mention of good news, the standing man's interest was immediately piqued. The kneeling man explained that the Hunter Association had preserved footage from the Hunter qualification exam, a clip clearly showing Hukun using paradox flame. The standing man watched the recording in silence. Slowly, a smile spread across his face. That rookie, he murmured. He really left an impression.
That's it for now. For more manhwa recaps, please subscribe to my channel, Manhwa Recaps.